Everyone is not your customer. So says Seth Godin, the well-known entrepreneur and marketeer. Apologies, I Seth Godin, not Seth Gordon. It's a really important point, really important to remember. Everyone is not your customer. Hi there, I'm Lauren Cooper, and I work with small, medium-sized organizations to help them scale their business through strategy and analysis. So today I'm here to talk to you about account-based marketing and what does it actually mean for your business. So what is account-based marketing? Why should you care about it? And how can SMEs practice account-based marketing? Let's have a look at the current challenges facing organizations. So 63% of the browser market is owned by Google. Now that third-party cookie data will be switched off by 2023. That means the way that you target and leverage that third-party data is now no longer going to be available. So your first-party data means the data you owned is now critical. 68% of organizations lack the capability to create a unified view of marketing performance. And lastly, 66% of small organizations have no form of account-based marketing to really drive those key accounts. Now, this opens up a number of questions in organizations. How can we really sweat our current accounts to reduce churn and drive revenue? What reports can help give us a cohesive customer report? How can we effectively target our customers in the cookieless world? And then how can we achieve account-based marketing with our current tech stack? So today you're going to learn importantly about account-based marketing. Then we're going to talk about key account management. Now, why we're going to talk about that is because we're going to show you how key account management is linked with account-based marketing and why it's so important to have that alignment with sales. Understand how you can activate ABM in your organization. The key stakeholders that you need, really, this is probably the most important part of the project, is key stakeholders, and then discovering what does good look like. So let's jump in. Account-based marketing. So this is showing that it's really shifted from this very single approach where marketing focuses on demand generation. We're moving right over to a more cohesive, collaborative approach where we're walking across all of the different customer-focusing teams like sales, client services, and any other team that focuses with clients. Now, it's not to say that we're not ignoring demand generation. That is still important, but that the shift is now focusing on value and how we can drive that value by using account-based marketing, which also involves acquisition. Now, this is a really great slide that summarizes account-based marketing, talking about the fact that this is not a tactical one-off activity where you're trying to increase leads for something. This is a long-term approach. It's a strategy, and it's focused on those key accounts, and you're working very much in partnership between sales and marketing, and how you can focus on this really focused approach. Instead of doing that broad old-fashioned approach, you're now focusing laser, and you're tiering each of these accounts so you can understand how you can drive value within those accounts. What's interesting about this is that ITSMA ran a survey with marketing leaders and organizations that are already on the road to ABM, and 97% of them regarded ABM as driving a much higher ROI. So that's quite an impressive stat by organizations that are already running ABM. So it's all about bringing sales, marketing, client services, etc., together. So now we see we work it together, but now we talk about, instead of our normal focus, do you remember I said about switching from broad, we're flipping it around and we're starting at a narrow focus at the top. So we want to think about identifying that accounts. How can we then expand them? And so we're starting to broaden out that particular focus on those accounts. Then we engage, we drive in advocacy, and lastly, most importantly, we measuring. So we want to make sure we measure, but we use account-based marketing measurements that really matter and add value. So the game's changed, and we're moving from the status quo of marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, really small targeted activities, and looking at a total available market. We're now moving to a very focused account that we're just looking at ideal customer profile. We've very much aligned all hands on deck, everybody working together, and we're focusing on a targeted account pipeline as an organization. So you can see how this alignment makes sense. Now, I mentioned key account management earlier because it's an important process, because most of the time with key account management, this is the starting point, the strategy, and the focus of the accounts. And then ABM is the piece that actually helps it bring it to life and actually really drive value and tap deeper into those accounts and get as much value as we can out of those accounts. So this is a really great study that McKinsey ran on some large buyers in corporates. Now, what they did was ask those clients what was the important decision-making elements that help them make those decisions. And so they, when asked consciously, they answered to say product reliability, price, and product features. Now, this was a long-term behavioral study, and over a period of time, they analyzed the customer's buying behavior and then did a regressional study to understand those particular decisions that I made, what drove those, and what this did was change the game. And it showed that actually, although they consciously believe this is how they make decisions, subconsciously in the blue, they actually make decisions in another way. And sales, service, and support all are critical. In fact, they doubled in terms of what they actually did. And so this is where key account management is really important, and how account-based marketing links with that, and how it can really together drive that value into those big accounts and help you tap into that value. And so key account management is already alive and well in many organizations, but the most important thing is that this is really around complex products and services. So some of you may have products that can be purchased very easily and implemented via the marketplace, but you may also have complex services that need that long sales process and implementation time. And so that means that you'll probably find within your customer segments that you have a set of accounts, maybe 20%, that account for 80% of your revenue. So that means those need to be segmented. They also expect a single point of contact, and there's a lot more involved value that you can add to those particular clients. So let's talk about how we can actually get ABM off the ground for you. So we are talking about agile processes, because I mentioned this in the title. Now, I know I might be teaching you to suck eggs, because as a technical companies, you probably master the skill very well, and you've been doing this for a very long time in terms of how you develop products. You've got Scrum Masters, you have processes in which you develop these products in an agile way. But marketing is not as agile. There's some things that they might do that are sort of driven by reports, but it's an important thing to make sure that, you know, you're creating a process, but you are adapting to that process. And so we've got the Agile Alliance values here of what's agile and what's not agile. And the important thing is to say that this is like a pendulum that swings. And as we focus on one side, we pull resources away from the other side. But it's not to say elements like things on the right, process and tools, all of that, and following a plan in particular, those, it's not to say they're not valid, but it's not following the plan religiously. So you can't not have a plan, but you just need to make sure that you're agile in that approach. And particularly, as I mentioned before, about alignment and engagement, On the left, customer collaboration, or in this instance, key stakeholder alignment and collaboration, really, really important. The last thing I'll mention is on the top right, processes and tools. Although that is related in respect to the project itself, it may not be as critical, but the process and tools, when you activate in ABM, are important, and you need to be able to assess those to determine how you could feasibly activate ABM in your organization. And so step one is making sure you understand who the stakeholders are. Again, as I say, I keep hitting home about the alignment, really critical here. Marketing and sales, of course, it's a given, really important, but IT is going to be really critical in this project. So your CTO, your CIO, they really need to be heavily involved in this to make sure you're courting them, understanding how you can use the data, what data you have, what's feasible, what's not feasible, because all of that data is critical in the pursuit of ABM. And you'll see in a leadership team, really important too, because we want to make sure that they are supporting you and they're also not pulling you off track. Of course, you need to be agile, but it's important that they are aware of the process and the ways that you have agreed. Now, setting your objectives is always important at the start of a project. What this helps, particularly with ABM, is understanding when you're doing your assessment phase and you are thinking about implementing, you need to know the information that you need. So if you're reducing churn, you need to know the metrics and the data you need to identify what it is you're reducing and also how you're going to measure that. The same with acquisition and upsell. Now, in fact, with ABM, you can achieve all three of these. But it may be that you have a specific focus that you want to be critical and to push that forward as a priority. So step three is where the fun happens. Now, this is where you become agile. So you've got that lovely blue phase of 1, 2, 3, 4, this lovely linear approach where it goes from left to right. But hey, presto, boy, does that change up and bring some interesting things. So very much like in your product development world where you have version 1.0, 1.1, similar thing happens here. Is that, you document all the tools on MarTech, then you suddenly realize actually what we probably need to do next is integrate the software. Then you might be going, identify all the data types. Maybe you need to integrate that. And you need to come up with joint dashboards. Looking at assessing your resources, tools, and teams. That's important because you need to understand the ways of working within those teams, what tools are useful, and going back to key account management, you need to make the sales process easier. And perhaps there's things you're looking at in terms of formats, ways of working, and channels. So all of this is assessing all of the processes behind the scenes. Number 4 is analyze data. And this is the piece where you start off where it's like splitting the atom and a whole pile of stuff comes out. The analyze data phase is really the most important phase of the development of a project for ABM, because this is going to tell you everything you need to know. It's going to tell you an operational perspective, which I've listed here as one of them. So that's one of many. Do you need to clean and optimize your data? Do you need to enrich your data because it's not quite ready to give you that ABM perspective of personalizing the data? It also might highlight what are important customers for you. So there's a lot of things that will come out of the analysis phase. Step 4, very much as I was talking about the analysis phase, this leads very much into identifying and profiling your accounts. Now, dependent on what objectives you have set at the start, this will determine what metrics you're going to use in identifying and tiering your accounts. It might be things like churn, lost purchase, those kind of things might be relevant. Perhaps you're looking at product fit. There may be other elements in there that are valuable for your particular objective. But what also happens here is, as I mentioned about customer data, this is where almost, if you imagine, a snow globe effect happens. Imagine you pick it up, give it a shake, and all sorts of interesting things start to bubble and come to the surface. And in this instance, this is where you start to discover untapped value. Because there may be some clients who actually have some really interesting high value indicators that perhaps have not been spotted before. You're focusing just on saying these customers spend the most, therefore they're the most important. Of course they are, but there are probably some customers who could be spending more, and maybe they have all of the elements to make them a bigger customer, but you've just not spotted them. So this happens and comes out of the customer analysis data phase. You'll start to identify and profile those accounts. You can tier them and really start generating that value and understand how you can tap into those accounts. So then we go on to the next phase is step 5, aligning again, aligning. I really hammer this home, but you want to align the sales. So this could be things of the way you communicate, the way you're having meetings, strategy and goals, and that could even start bringing in new stakeholders where you talk about HR, and perhaps you want to align performance objectives in the way that you align the teams. And those 2 at the bottom I find really are important is really training across both organizations. So both within marketing and sales, you're learning about each other's teams. What are the challenges? What are the things that add value? And those things mean that you can really add value to each other and actually work together better as a team. And so that data quality piece, the last one, obviously very important. Data is really going to tell you so much about what you need to do. So step 6, this is where things get exciting, because now you're going to hit things off the ground, and now you're going to start marketing to your customers. You're going to drive some content. You're going to create great content, which is relevant, the right time, the right place. And this, I really love this customer heroism chart, because this is talking about stop doing the should do's and move over to the must do's and the high impact. So stop doing everything down the bottom and focus everything in the right place, which is how that customer data will start to help you identify how to do this. And then, of course, step 7, most importantly, we need to be able to set a scorecard and measure that. And this is where you start to move along those phases. You can see from the left, you start with target, then you start to engage, then you start to get to momentum. So you're accelerating now, and then you get to a closed phase. And each of these metrics may be slightly different. They could be numbers, they could be percentages, and they could be revenue. But it's making sure that you've got the right balance and valuable metrics that are useful to you and to add value to customers. So project tools, this is split into 2. So I've split the left side is what I would say is related to account-based marketing in terms of the running of that on a continual phase. So your CRM and your sales system, most importantly. So that's once you've got to the point you've agreed a strategy and everything else, you need these 2 things. And the simplistic thing of just saying CRM, and it could be something simple like HubSpot, Zoho, etc., because it's highlighting customer events and things that are happening at that time. The same happens with sales tracking, Pipedrive, Apache, Zoho, whatever you have, and that also highlights those events. So what I mean by events is it might be perhaps customers coming up to a license renewal. You might look at it and say, oh, they're going to probably switch to cloud. And at this point, you then say, we have other products and software that relates to that. That might be an interesting point that would actually be of interest to that customer. So those are the type of things you're identifying in terms of the value adds for customers. And also to mention that, remember I talked about the assessment phase. This is where that's really important, because you're assessing what do you have now. And so we can find a way to practically get you onto the ABM path rather than say, we're going to invest in a really big software. There are practical approaches you can do to make a start to get onto the path of ABM. Now, all the stuff on the right is project tools in blue of how you would go about running the project. Trello, Asana, Monday, of course, project management software, always very helpful. Understanding, what you've got, the view of the projects, how you can deliver them, milestones, and of course, in this agile manner, you're upping and downing, you're changing things that are connected and interrelated. and you're also showing who's responsible. Communication, very important for your stakeholders. So we really want to make sure that all the stakeholders are informed and aligned. Slack, obviously, Teams, and their message platform. One of the things I probably really highlight was value for me is Loom. It's a really great software, and there's probably other video softwares you have. But if you want to just do a quick update or even brief a team, Loom is great video because you can just quickly demonstrate and people can watch it in their own time. And also, for some reason, it seems less onerous to watch a video than to read something. Your data sharing is really important, and having a central library related to that project, Confluence, Google Drive, SharePoint, but making sure that you've got the version control, particularly when it involves data, and you've got a process that's agreed. And all along the bottom, you can see it's all about consistency and under communication, no surprises. Now, the reason I say no surprises is because you're continually engaging people. It means you're not going to get blocked. So if people know what's coming, they're going to be on your side. And that's where it's so important. Now, there are 3 types of ABM. You can really, go for the all gold version of programmatic, one-to-many, and it does amazing things of automation. ABM Lite is one-to-few, and strategic is one-to-one. Now, you could easily get to a point of strategic or ABM Lite, even as a small organization, but doing it in a practical way that's sensible with what your capabilities are and also what your tech stack is that you're currently using. And so where's everybody else? The key thing of this slide is that only 33% have some form of ABM. Now, this is great news because it means you can be more competitive. If you get on board now and get into ABM, you can really start drilling into those accounts and adding value. Means you're going to be put ahead of the others. And once you want to start getting to that all singing, all dancing, gold version of automated programmatic stuff, you can get to that, but you already adopting the principles and the ways of working, which is the thing that always takes time to change. So there are some great case studies. I won't go through the details of these. You can read these on the handouts, but the key thing to remember from a key account management point of view, this client managed to achieve a reduction of 50% in their churn. And that's really through something simple like increasing the sales process, the value of the sales process. So the right formats, great sales enablement tools, a really simplified process alongside the engagement with customers. But that piece is where that what I mentioned before about tools is the right thing of assessing that. And then from an ABM point of view, this client managed to achieve 80% increase in quality of leads. So that meant you're spending less time on driving qualifying leads. You've got good quality leads already that are dropping into your bucket. So ABM, of course, is all about alignment, tiering those accounts, integrating the accounts. Again, what I say, but I really hope that this has been of value to you and give you some tip points to really say it is possible for you to do this. You don't need to invest too heavily in systems. You can achieve it, but by really making sure you analyze that data and analyze your systems. If you need any help with that, of course, get in touch, or if you have any questions, do get in touch and let me know. But I really hope you enjoy the rest of the PM72 conference. Thank you. Bye-bye.